There are two ways to play the game of money. The first way is the one you were taught in school. It is the path of the employee and the small saver. It involves working hard, earning a salary, paying your taxes, budgeting your expenses, and perhaps putting a little bit away in a savings account or a 401k. It is a path built on hope, the hope that the market goes up, the hope that the currency holds its value, the hope that the government keeps its promises. Then there's the second way. This is the way of the 1%. It is the path of the Roman senator, the Renaissance banker, the industrial tycoon, and the modern billionaire. They do not rely on hope. They rely on structure. They do not try to predict the market. They control the playing field. They do not save money. They construct legal fortresses to protect it. For thousands of years, the ultra-wealthy have used a specific set of strategies to preserve their fortunes against wars, revolutions, inflation, and taxes. These strategies are not secrets, but they are hidden in plain sight, buried in legal texts, historical ledgers, and the fine print of history. This is the story of the discipline of perpetuity. From the Latifundia estates of ancient Rome to the offshore trusts of the Cayman Islands, the elite have always understood one fundamental truth. Wealth is not a number on a screen. Wealth is the legal container that holds the assets. Welcome to the Financial Coin Historian. Today, we are going to dismantle the financial advice you have been fed your entire life. We are going to travel through 2,000 years of economic history to decode the playbook of the ultra-high net worth family office. We will show you why the rich love illiquid assets while you're told to stay liquid. We will explain why they own nothing but control everything. And we will reveal how they use philanthropy not just for charity, but as the ultimate defensive weapon. This is how to manage your money like the 1%, from antiquity to the present. To understand the modern family office, we must first look at its ancestor, the Roman patrician household. In ancient Rome, wealth was not abstract. It was physical. It was terrifyingly real. The Roman elite understood that in a world of political violence and uncertain currencies, paper promises were worthless. The Latifundia, the safety of the physical. The foundation of Roman wealth was the Latifundia, massive agricultural estates worked by slave labor. But these weren't just farms. They were self-sufficient economic engines. They produced grain, wine, and olive oil, commodities that had intrinsic value regardless of what the currency was doing. When the Roman currency, the denarius, was debased by emperors mixing copper with silver, the cash savers were wiped out. But the owners of the Latifundia survived. Why? Because their wealth was in the soil, not in the coin. This brings us to the first principle of the elite, the preference for hard assets. Today's 1% mimic the Latifundia model. They do not keep millions in savings accounts. They hold timberland, commercial real estate, farmland, and gold. They understand that fiat currency is a melting ice cube. The goal is to own the thing that produces the money, not the money itself. The Publicani, private profit from public risk. But the Romans didn't just farm. They invented one of the most sophisticated financial structures in history, the Societas Publicanorum. The Roman state was small. It didn't have a massive bureaucracy to collect taxes or build roads. So it outsourced these tasks to private syndicates called the Publicani. These were groups of wealthy investors who would bid on state contracts. Here is how it worked. The Publicani would pay the Roman government a lump sum up front for the right to collect taxes in a province like Asia Minor. In return, they got to keep whatever they collected. If they were efficient or ruthless, their profits were enormous. This was the ancient version of private equity. The Roman elite, the senators, were legally forbidden from engaging in trade. It was considered beneath them. So they used intermediaries, freedmen and agents, to invest silently in these Publicani syndicates. The lesson. The elite have always separated their public face from their private profit. They invested in infrastructure, the very machinery of the state. Today, this mirrors how modern billionaires invest in government bonds, defense contractors, and public-private partnerships. They position themselves where the government must pay them. They monetize the state itself. As the Roman Empire fell, land became dangerous. It couldn't be moved. If a barbarian army or a rival king seized your territory, your wealth was gone. The elite needed a new strategy. They needed mobility. Enter the Renaissance bankers, families like the Medici of Florence. They introduced a concept that defines the modern offshore world: jurisdictional arbitrage, the bill of exchange. In the Middle Ages, carrying gold was a death sentence. Roads were filled with bandits. Furthermore, the church banned usury, charging interest on loans. This made banking technically illegal for Christians. The Medici solved both problems with one invention: the bill of exchange. A merchant in Florence could deposit gold with the Medici Bank. In return, he received a piece of paper, a bill, that allowed him to withdraw funds in London or Bruges months later, but in a different currency. Crucially, the Medici rigged the exchange rates. They didn't charge interest which was a sin. They simply gave you a worse exchange rate when you withdrew the money. They hid the profit in the conversion. The lesson: this was the birth of structural complexity. The elite learned that if you make a transaction complex enough and if you move it across borders, you can bypass laws like the ban on usury and taxes. The network as security. The Medici understood that their power did not come from the gold in their vault. It came from their network. They had branches in every major European city. If the King of England defaulted on a loan, as he often did, the Medici could absorb the loss because their branch in Rome was making a fortune handling the Pope's finances. This is the principle of diversification of jurisdiction. Today's ultra-wealthy do not keep all their money in one country. They have a golden visa in Dubai, a trust in South Dakota, a bank account in Switzerland, and real estate in London. They make themselves stateless so that no single government can claim total authority over their fortune. They treat nations like hotels, places to stay, not places that own them. By the 19th century, wealth had scaled up. We entered the age of the titans, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt. The threat was no longer bandits, it was the democratic state. Governments began passing income taxes and antitrust laws. To survive, the elite invented the ultimate financial weapon, the trust. Own nothing, control everything. John D. Rockefeller is the perfect case study. As he built Standard Oil, he realized that owning assets directly was a liability. If you own it, you can be sued. If you own it, you can be taxed. If you own it, it dies when you die. So Rockefeller and his lawyers perfected the trust. He transferred his shares of Standard Oil into a legal entity managed by trustees. Technically, Rockefeller owned nothing. The trust owned the oil. But Rockefeller controlled the trustees. This is the mantra of the modern 1%. Own nothing, control everything. If you look at a modern billionaire, they rarely own their mansions or yachts in their own name. They are owned by an LLC, which is owned by a trust, which is located in a tax-neutral jurisdiction. If someone tries to sue the billionaire, they find that the billionaire is, on paper, a pauper. The assets are locked away in a legal fortress that cannot be breached. The philanthropic shield Rockefeller was the most hated man in America. The government wanted to break up his monopoly. The public wanted his head. His response? He weaponized charity. He created the Rockefeller Foundation. This wasn't just altruism, it was strategic philanthropy. By moving his wealth into a charitable foundation, he did three things. 1, tax evasion. He avoided estate taxes that would have confiscated his fortune upon death. 2, legacy control. The foundation allowed his family to retain control over the money and how it was spent forever. 3, reputation. Laundering. He transformed his image from a robber baron to a benevolent grandfather. Today, this is the standard operating procedure. The Puros pledge to give away wealth is often a pledge to move wealth into a tax-exempt family foundation that employs the family members, funds their projects, and projects their influence, all while avoiding the taxman. It is the price of admission for the modern aristocracy. This brings us to today. The strategies of Rome, Florence, and Standard Oil have fused into a single institutional structure, the family office. If you have $10 million, you have a financial advisor. If you have $100 million, you have a family office. The operating system of the 1%. A family office is a private company whose only product is the wealth of one family. It employs lawyers, tax strategists, investment bankers, and risk managers who work for no one else. Their goal is not beating the market in the way a day trader thinks. Their goal is intergenerational perpetuity. They are planning for the great-grandchildren who haven't been born yet. The illiquidity premium, why they hate cash. Here is the biggest difference between you and the 1%. You are taught that liquidity is good. You want to be able to access your money. The family office believes liquidity is a cost. They invest in private equity, venture capital, and private credit. These are assets that cannot be sold quickly. You lock your money away for 10 years. Why? Because private markets offer higher returns than the public stock market, and they are immune to daily volatility. When the stock market crashes 20% in a week, the value of a private timberland estate or a private port facility doesn't change on paper. This valuation lag prevents panic. The elite capture the illiquidity premium. They get paid extra for not needing their money. They can afford to wait a decade for a payout, whereas the average worker needs their cash next month. Time is the ultimate asset of the rich. The governance of family. But the biggest threat to family wealth is not the market. It's the family itself. The mantra is, the first generation builds it, the second generation enjoys it, the third generation destroys it. To stop this, the family office acts as a governance structure. They treat the family like a corporation. Family constitutions, legal documents that set rules for how family members can access money. Education programs. Heirs are not just given cash. They are trained in financial literacy and stewardship. Conflict resolution. Professional mediators handle disputes so that a divorce or a feud doesn't shatter the fortune. They don't just manage the assets, they manage the human beings. They engineer the family to ensure the human capital doesn't destroy the financial capital. You might be thinking, I don't have $1 billion, I don't have a family office. How does this apply to me? You cannot replicate their scale, but you can replicate their principles. You can adopt the discipline of perpetuity. 1. Structure over assets. Stop thinking only about what to buy, stocks, crypto. Start thinking about how to hold it. Even a middle-class family can use a living trust to avoid probate courts and ensure their assets pass smoothly to their children. Don't own things in your own name if you can avoid it. Use legal structures to protect what you build. 2. The long game. Illiquidity. Stop checking your portfolio every day. The 1% get rich because they can't sell their best assets. Replicate this. Lock away a portion of your wealth in long-term investments that you cannot touch. Remove the temptation to react to short-term news. 3. Diversify jurisdiction. The Medici rule. Do not have 100% of your life tied to one economy. Even if you can't open a Swiss bank account, you can hold international index funds, keep some physical gold, a non-sovereign asset, or learn a skill that is globally transferable. Do not be entirely dependent on the health of a single currency. 4. Human capital governance. Treat your family like a business. Discuss money openly with your children. Don't just leave them an inheritance, leave them a philosophy. If you give money to a fool, it will vanish. If you give education to a steward, it will grow. The history of the 1% is not just a history of greed. It is a history of survival. From the Romans to the Rockefellers, the elite survive because they recognized that the world is unstable. Governments fall, currencies die, markets crash. The only thing that endures is a system designed to endure. Managing money like the 1% isn't about buying a yacht. It's about building an ark. It's about constructing a vessel that can carry your legacy through the storms of history. You may not be able to build a family office today, but you can start building your ark. You can stop acting like a consumer and start thinking like a custodian. Because in the end, you don't really own your money. You are just taking care of it for the next generation. That is the discipline of perpetuity. This is the financial coin historian. History has given us the blueprint. Now it is up to you to build.